Hi everyone, I'm Fareeha Ali and I'm your host for today's webinar. Thanks for joining us. This session will cover one of the hottest topics in retail, online marketplaces. I'm joined by Tom McFadyen of McFadyen Digital and Rachel Goldband, Head of Thoughtful Marketplace at Indigo Books and Music. The heart of this discussion are some key takeaways from Tom's new detailed book, Marketplaces Best Practices. We'll explore why the marketplace model is growing, what the basics of marketplaces are, who is succeeding with this model, and how your organization can use the marketplace strategy to grow. First, we'll have a quick introduction of our panelists. I'm Fareeha. I'm a senior analyst of marketplaces and the research and editorial director at Digital Commerce 360. Digital Commerce 360 is a publication that has researched e-commerce for more than 20 years, and it now publishes 20 e-commerce reports and offers 7 online databases tracking thousands of online retailers. My main area of focus for the last 5 years has been the growth of marketplaces, so this topic is truly near and dear to my heart. I really couldn't be more excited about Tom's new 400-page book on marketplaces. I'll turn it over to Tom and Rachel now for a quick intro.
Great, thanks Fareeha. If we could advance 2 slides. We can talk, we have 1 slide about McFadyen Digital. But 4 things to learn about McFadyen Digital, just to give some qualification on our expertise to discuss marketplaces. First off, we build big enterprise solutions. We've been doing it for a long time. Our solutions sometimes generate billions or tens of billions of dollars of GMV for our enterprise customers. Second, we've been doing it for a long time, a third of a century doing digital solutions, 22 years doing e-commerce, and 15 years building marketplaces, which generate over $1 billion of GMV cumulatively for our clients. Third, we're a global company. I'm actually in our Brazil office this week. We have headquarters in Virginia, but teams spread across the US and an offshore operation in Brazil. So we provide onshore, nearshore, and offshore. And fourth, and what we're probably the most proud of, is our client successes. A lot of our clients win awards for the different marketplaces. We're proud to have Rachel talking with us here today. A lot of the software vendors have recognized our clients for their accomplishments for their marketplaces, and that's what makes us the most proud. So hand it over to Rachel, one of our clients, to introduce herself next.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for having me. A little bit about Indigo and Thoughtful. I've been with Indigo for almost 6 years, moving through different areas of the business, all focusing on e-commerce strategy, customer experience, and of course the gifting journey. My current role is head of Thoughtful and one of the founding members, and Thoughtful is a division of Indigo. So a little bit about Indigo before introducing Thoughtful for those of you who aren't familiar with Indigo. The first Indigo opened in Burlington, Ontario in 1997, creating the desire to bring a unique cultural destination to the Canadian retail marketplace. Over the years, Indigo has evolved to become the world's first cultural department store with locations all across the country and an award-winning online experience, and dubbed by most of our customers as their happy place. Indigo is Canada's largest curator of ideas and inspirations to enrich your life with books and e-reading, specialty toys, gifts, lifestyle enhancing products that affordably offer intrinsic quality, beauty, and timeless design. And moving over to Thoughtful, Thoughtful is a digital gifting marketplace that sells experiences both in person and virtual, very necessary right now, subscriptions, gift boxes, and customized gift. Thoughtful uses digital delivery as our fulfillment method, so instantly delivered, which allows our customers to give a thoughtful gift up to the last second. All of our products ship digitally, but some have a physical component that ships after the recipient has redeemed their gift. We're really lucky to be able to have a highly curated marketplace that is comprised solely of small and medium local businesses throughout the country. We're able to introduce our gift givers to the most unique gifts and experiences that they may not otherwise have found. Our curation team does such an amazing job working with local businesses to not only feature their existing product assortment, but to coach them as well using data on how to expand their assortment to meet the needs of our customers, and just trying to make gifting thoughtful and joyful and easy.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Tom and Rachel. So the presentation in the book has the what, where, and how of marketplaces, but I'm going to start off with the why. So what is the deal with marketplaces? Why are they so hot? To give you a little background, when I started covering marketplaces, there really wasn't much out there. We tracked maybe 10 or 15 marketplaces around the world. And in interviews, I'd have to explain what a marketplace is, and especially to consumers. Many had no idea what that term even meant. But fast forward to now, and Digital Commerce 360 researches and analyzes more than 100 marketplaces, large and small, and it has become a key e-commerce strategy for both merchants selling on marketplaces, but also launching their own to become a marketplace operator. The biggest reason marketplaces are hot, consumers like them. I mean, that's like just the bottom line. 97% of consumers we surveyed last year said they shopped on marketplaces, and it wasn't just Amazon. For example, 36% said they shopped on from a marketplace seller on Walmart, and what's even more important, 43% purchased on US marketplaces outside of the big three, Amazon, eBay, and Walmart. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. And consumers like marketplaces for the better prices, lower shipping costs, faster delivery, and a wide array of unique products. These are all potential benefits of the marketplace model that Tom and Rachel will go over later on in the presentation as well. So looking at the data, there's a lot of transactions occurring on marketplaces. Globally, nearly $2 trillion was spent on the top 100 marketplaces in 2019, up 18% year over year. And sales on marketplaces account for 57% of global online retail sales, according to our data. In the US, marketplaces grew 16% in 2019. And if you take out Amazon and eBay, marketplaces grew even more, 27% year over year. And here's something interesting. So Digital Commerce 360 categorizes marketplaces in two ways, pure and hybrid. Pure are marketplaces that only sell from third-party merchants. So that would be eBay and Etsy and other marketplaces like those. And hybrid marketplaces are sites where the marketplace operator sells its own products in addition to third-party seller products, like in Amazon or Walmart. The hybrid model is a growing trend as merchants realize the opportunity in the marketplace model as an add-on to their e-commerce business. Hybrid marketplaces saw the biggest growth in 2019, 36% year over year. And during the pandemic, all eyes were on e-commerce. The pandemic really shined a light on the benefits of marketplace model. Marketplaces are uniquely positioned to adapt to circumstances quickly because they don't have the same constraints as their retail counterparts. The marketplace model allows for more flexibility, often because the marketplace operator shares the legwork with its sellers. So during high volume shopping periods, as we saw last year, marketplaces are in a better position than the traditional retail model of sourcing, storing, and fulfilling products. Our early estimates show that US marketplaces grew GMV 40% last year, nearly triple the growth in 2019. And now that consumers have shopped around different marketplaces, they're even more used to this model, and I think it'll continue to grow over the years. So what is the opportunity for B2C and B2B merchants? Remember, there are two sides to the marketplace model, consumers and your sellers. And in order for the model to work, both sides need to grow. And so that's why I wanted to show the results of a survey we did last year with retailers regarding their marketplace business. 71% said they plan to increase their marketplace business this year, meaning they'll be relying on other marketplaces to grow their business. 37% will expand the number of marketplaces they sell on. That means if you're planning to launch your own marketplace, you'll have a pool of merchants willing to sell on your site. And that was not the case a few years ago when merchants were mostly focused on the large marketplaces and were hesitant to branch out. So now I'll turn it over to Tom.
Thanks, Fareeha. So let's talk a little bit about the book, Marketplace Best Practices, subtitle, Transforming Commerce in the Platform Economy. We'll talk a little bit about what platform economy means. The book is based on our 15 years of building marketplaces. In fact, when we started building marketplaces, they weren't even really called marketplaces. They just evolved into that trend after Amazon, eBay, and others became very popular. We've built dozens of these across different types of solutions, from digital goods to hard goods to services or combinations of hard goods, products, and services. Cumulatively, these marketplaces generate billions of dollars of GMV. GMV stands for gross merchandise value in the marketplace world. We've also been engaged by quite a few of our clients for strategy advisory roles, so selecting platforms, determining the best business model, setting up the KPIs and metrics. And a lot of those requests from the clients have been put into this book. And last thing I want to mention on here, this last bullet is, even though my name's on the book, really many thanks go to the team at McFadyen Digital. It was several dozen people who contributed content to a lot of the different chapters. The subject of marketplaces is really huge, and the 450 or so pages of this book, we had to actually trim it down from another 100 or so more just to try to get into a reasonable sized book. There's just that much content about marketplaces to learn. So that was our challenge, really trimming down the content to get it into something that could be bound into a book. So let's talk on the next slide here about the three major sections of the book. If you had a chance to see the title page, you saw the what, the who, and the how. So the what section, I'm not going to read through all these, but what is describing the attributes of a marketplace, how they're measured or by their capability, their maturity model, B2C versus B2B, some of the features and the finances that make this work. And we'll go into a few of these examples in some of the upcoming slides. The who chapter, part three, part two is the case studies, and about half of those are McFadyen Digital clients, others are not. And we'll also talk about Rachel's experience at Indigo with the thoughtful marketplace. And the last part three of the book, is the largest one, which is really the actionable how to operate, to launch, operate, run, and optimize a marketplace with a lot of different elements there. So we'll talk about, this will be the structure for the remaining conversation we'll have before Q&A. So on the next slide, we can see dig into kind of the outline of the what part of the book. So we'll talk about in the next slides, the platform economy, which is an important base understanding for this. If you go back just for a second, please. We'll talk about the maturity model, marketplace maturity model, and some of the financial model, which is different in a marketplace than in a traditional e-commerce business model. So next slide, we'll talk a little bit about the platform versus pipeline. So the sequential pipeline e-commerce model has this series of sequential labor-intensive activities that must be done within a retailer or e-commerce merchant, or we say retail a lot here, but this also applies to B2B distributors and brands. So the platform model, the marketplace model applies to both B2C and B2B. But in this sequential pipeline, the merchant must find products, negotiate contracts with the vendors, merchandise the products, upload the imagery, create the text that's going to describe it in a marketing language, set the prices, order inventory, stock, hold the inventory both financially and physically, fulfill orders, and support customers. So that's the legacy e-commerce that's been around for a quarter century, and in fact, retail that's been around for millennia. Now, when we talk about the platform economy, this is a great book for those of you interested in a little more detail about the academic background, published about 5 years ago by 3 professors. They defined the platform business model. It's a nexus of rules and architectures, meaning you have these rules or terms and conditions by which sellers and customers interact. You have a technology architecture to enable these interactions or transactions. It is open, so it allows participation between the parties, but it's regulated. It benefits from these network effects. So the example they use in the book is of the network effect is telephones. When you have 2 telephones, you have 1 connection. But as you scale exponentially, 12 phones goes to 66 connections. As you can imagine, with millions of sellers on Amazon and hundreds of millions or billions of customers, you start having huge exponential numbers of connections between buyers and sellers. And this doesn't have to be at the Amazon scale. It's at many, $10 million GMV, $100 million GMV companies also experience the network effect. Next, in terms of the role of the marketplace is to, and any platform, is to actively promote interaction between the partners. In marketplaces, we're talking about buyers and sellers. And last bullet here on this, we talk about the fact that it can scale so much more quickly. If you look at today's largest companies, the top 7 largest companies in the world by market cap are all marketplaces. Most of today's, not even unicorns, the decacorns, the companies worth $10 billion or more, like a DoorDash that started I think 8 years ago, worth $60 billion. These companies that grow to billions or tens of billions of dollars of valuation are all platforms, essentially forms of marketplaces. So that's the concept of pipeline versus platform. Let's next talk about, on the next slide, how this is being leveraged. Everybody's probably seen Jeff Bezos's flywheel effect that you kind of adapted Jim Collins' terminology to build the virtuous cycle of marketplaces. We built out a slightly more detailed version of that. If you click forward, you'll see the 8 steps in ours, which go through the cycle of more products in the middle from a marketplace, which drive more customers, drives more sales, drives more profits because you have less expense. As you build up momentum, you get more sellers. You can collect more data, which is invaluable. Some of the things that Amazon doesn't like to advertise or people know about is all those transactions of third-party sellers that you learn as a marketplace operator. If you're a omni-channel merchant, you can have better store assortment or drive foot traffic in there as well by processing returns and so forth. So a lot of detail on here, and those, we should have said this at the beginning, if anybody's interested in a copy of these slides, we're happy to email them out. Just send a note to info@mcfadden.com. We're happy to send copies of these slides. There's a lot of content on here. So next slide, that was chapter 1. In chapter 2, we talk about the marketplace maturity model, which is actually behind me here on the wall. There's a download of this as well. We'll send you a link to that. We define 5 tiers, much like the software capability maturity model, CMM or CMMI. Starting with level 1, we have the first party e-commerce. Again, it's been around a quarter century. It's that pipeline business. Level 2 is dropship, which is only a minor incremental improvement. Level 3 is where you really platform your business and you enable third-party sellers to interact with your customers. Level 4, you start doing quantitative management where the metrics drive your optimization, drive your automation, drive your integration with different systems. And level 5 is optimizing where you're constantly innovating a new business model. And so Indigo's Thoughtful is an example of innovation around the digital experience marketplace. So next slide. This is available again, very detailed 24-page document with this infographic you'll see behind me, mcfadden.com/MMM, and we'll send that link out to you. On the next slide, let's talk about the financial model of marketplaces. So simply put, e-commerce, you buy something for $, for $A, and you sell it for $B, and your gross profit is the difference between those two. This is the same thing that's, again, happened in retail for millennia. On marketplaces, it's a different basic financial model. You set the sellers, the third-party sellers set the price, and the marketplace charges Y% commission. And in the marketplace model, the gross profit is that Y%, say it's 15%, 20% times whatever selling price the third-party seller sets for their product. That's very simplified, of course, but let's look at some of the different elements that go into that. I mentioned fees, that's the commission, but there also can be ad-driven revenue, other things like fulfillment, and this, again, very simplified equation here, not exact math here, but if you click one more time, you'll see some of the elements in here. In the fees, on the next animation, it's going to list out the different types of fees, commissions, subscriptions, listing fees, different types of advertising that can happen on a marketplace, and other types of revenue sources for a marketplace, fulfillment, some of the data insights, other services that can be provided. And then, of course, there are the CapEx and OpEx expenses that need to be considered in this model. So next slide, we'll talk at a very high level. I'm not going to dig into this, but again, this is all in the book, and we're happy to send this PowerPoint to folks. We'll break out in a 5-year model. There's 3 types of revenue. On the left, we have the commissions revenue, which can be based on a number of factors go into that. Your monthly active users, conversion rates, AOV, commission rate, etc. You have your membership revenue, and you have advertising revenue. And clicking once more, we'll see the expense side of that, which will drive the gross profit numbers out of there. So again, expenses can be on the platform, software and services, the internal staff, and marketing expenses, and other expenses as well. So this is, again, a simplified spreadsheet, but we're happy to provide a more detailed model for anybody interested in that. All right. So if we can move on, let's talk about the who, some case studies. We're not going to talk about all of these here, but everybody knows Amazon, and Instacart is an interesting case study we described, which is actually a 4-party marketplace. You have, of course, customers that want groceries, and you have grocers that want to sell groceries, but you also have the gig economy, delivery personnel and personal shoppers as a 3rd party, and you have a 4th party, which is the CPG brands, Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, Procter & Gamble, that are paying money for advertising and promotions and coupons and so forth. So a variety of different types of marketplaces here. But let's move forward, and on the next slide, we'll let Rachel explain a little bit more about the Indigo marketplace.
Thanks so much. So the initial driving force behind Thoughtful was a mission to solve so many pain points in the gifting journey, and trying to solve that problem naturally brought us to pulling together a marketplace. I mean, from the base retail model of owned inventory and even dropship, some of the compliance metrics that are required to partake on both sides of those, whether it be vendor onboarding, vendor listing fees, dropship requirements to make sure that you're technologically able to connect in with the automated systems that fuel our online platform. It's onerous, and creating a marketplace creates that connection with the merchant and the customer to showcase their assortment. So that's why using a marketplace was a natural fit once we had established all of our pain points, from selecting the right gift to making sure it's something that leans into the connection between the gift giver and the gift recipient, to knowing that it's going to get there in time and that your recipient will enjoy it. So we wanted to connect customers with the best and the most unique gifts, and making local accessible from anywhere was definitely part of our mission. And so that meant working with a lot of small businesses coast to coast. And so creating that self-guided process on Thoughtful really helped us showcase from everything from wine to, mommy and me classes. There's a case there that when someone's buying the mommy and me classes, they also buy the wine, because that's self-gifting. And so having everything available was really important, and we were never going to get that from one specific merchant. And so, back, in my days of launching dropship originally was used for style, variant, and size expansion, and it wasn't for not having owned inventory, but to just make sure that you were adding on to the assortment of choice that you had already bought into as a retailer. So pulling this all together and working with McFadyen was amazing, because it allowed us to truly identify what those pain points were and how to solve them in the best way and create the right tech stack to right size our business, because we're on a separate platform. We are obviously smaller than our parents. It's at indigo.ca, and it was great. We're able to create those connections and give gifts instantly.
All right, so yeah, I just want to emphasize that so Digital Commerce 360 tracks more than 100 marketplaces now. And when you hear marketplace, you think of Amazon or eBay or globally Alibaba, Tmall, all of those large ones. But it's really what we've learned in our research is there's so much opportunity for other marketplaces out there. And just looking at this list, there's a lot of different marketplaces that have created a niche for themselves, either by picking a really unique or particular vertical or product category, or even what Rachel just described as partnering with local merchants. And even that in itself is something that large marketplaces can't do. So this list is just a wide variety of marketplaces with different ranges of GMV that are profitable in their own way, that have really taught us that there's a lot of room for opportunity.
So in our book, this is actually in the what section, but it applies to the who as well. So everybody's pretty familiar with B2C versus B2B, and probably even C2C. So we break the types of marketplaces into these 4 quadrants. B2C, B2B up on the top, and then consumer to consumer or citizen to citizen on the bottom left, and citizen to business or consumer to business on the bottom right. So if we look at B2C, these are pretty clear. Walmart, Wayfair, Best Buy sells business to consumer. Staples, HP Enterprise, Tetra Pak are marketplaces that sell B2B. Etsy, Poshmark, Craigslist, TaskRabbit, these tend to be consumer to consumer sales. And in the consumer to business or citizen to business, you look at mostly services marketplaces, but Fiverr is where individuals can sell their services to a business. Same with Upwork. YouTube, a lot of individuals are making hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars creating videos, YouTube videos that are getting advertisement dollars from sponsorships from businesses. And then there are, of course, hybrids. The term hybrid can mean a lot of different things, but in this case, we're looking at companies that do B2C and B2B. Amazon is doing tens of billions of dollars of B2B business as one of their biggest areas of growth in their business. And B2B in general is one of the biggest areas of growth. So a lot of B2C companies are starting to sell also B2B, or vice versa, B2B starting to sell B2C. We also see this hybrid between B2C and C2C. So, eBay started off with a lot of individuals selling to individuals of used goods, but now a lot of enterprise businesses are selling their goods to consumers on eBay. And same with some C2C crossover from C2B. So a lot of citizens request other citizens to drive them around in their cars, but also businesses use Uber for transportation. And on the last category of C2B and B2B, we see cases like Shutterstock, where citizens might be selling their, if you click one last time, we might see citizens selling their photography to businesses, and also businesses selling their photography on Shutterstock. So a lot of hybrids across these 4 categories. So definitely when you're looking at your business, look not just in your certain niche, but how you can expand into adjacent categories. So this brings us into the third part of the book, which is the biggest, and it's where you get the action of, this all sounds great, but how do I actually do it? So here we have, I think about 20 or so chapters in the technology architecture. The book's generally not too deep in technology, but other considerations are, do I build, buy, or rent? So this is perpetual license, or custom build, or SaaS, or microservices type build of a platform, both on the commerce side and on the marketplace side. Payments and tax, one of the most complex elements of launching a marketplace. The big pain point, for example, Nexus is driven by where the seller is located and where the customer is, and there's different liability in the tax, in the payment for KYC, know your customer. How do you recruit sellers? Huge amounts of data that you both have to manage and that you gain from managing catalog and offers from third-party sellers. How do you need to structure your organization internally to staff a marketplace? What are some of the metrics? Different user experience when you operate a marketplace, including things like the buy box and multiple offers per product. How do you market a marketplace? CRO, customer service when you have a third party selling the goods. Then we talk about 2 chapters of advanced technical features and advanced business models. There are so many different variants off the marketplace model that it's very easy to differentiate with different technology features or different business models. In some of the next slides, we'll talk about marketplace enablement steps and implementation methodologies. And then at the end, we have some best practices for sellers. This book is really targeting marketplace operators, not sellers, but we do have one kind of bonus chapter at the end, which is for sellers. So I mentioned marketplace enablement steps. This ties in with the marketplace maturity model behind me. The lower level is broken into 3 categories: strategy, business, and technology. So on the left, you see green, strategy and business, and technology down below. And the top, we have the timeline of assessment to minimum viable product, full deployment, and operations. So these are essentially all the services or steps needed in launching a product. We do provide all these services, but most of the time it's half or more done by the client, half done by McFadden. So it's a somewhat of a sushi menu where you check off what you need from your partner, like McFadyen Digital. In the strategy formation, we'll talk about some of these activities. In competitive analysis, what's your budget and ROI target for the initiative? Long-term roadmap, milestones. What's your organizational design? Who am I going to have to hire to run and operate this marketplace? Doing some vendor selection process from the commerce and the marketplace platform, and then high-level architecture diagrams and plans. So after the assessment, typically get into a minimum viable product launch, or sometimes minimum lovable products, as some people say. So in this process, the green box here, we have business prep. So what categories of goods do you want to sell? What's your curation process going to be like? How strict are you going to be on filtering goods coming in there? Defining those terms and conditions for your sellers. So again, remembering the definition of a platform, this is the rules upon which the parties must integrate, the terms and conditions. You define those once instead of negotiating 1,000 contracts with 1,000 different vendors. You have a commission grid. These products we're charging 15%. These categories we're charging 20% commission rate. How are you going to recruit your sellers and onboard them? What's that process going to be? If you have an existing commerce site, how are you going to change the user experience for that? What's your marketing plan? Typically, we define a shipping grid. So carve the country into 4 quadrants and charge or calculate shipping based on those quadrants, or international shipping. How are you going to do your KPIs and reporting or dashboard for the performance of this platform, launching, and program management and governance? So that's the strategy and business. Next is the technology. Click the blue box down below. We see a lot of the technology side of things, some of which is common to e-commerce implementations, but taxonomy is an area that's especially important in marketplaces, because you have to harmonize data not only between your first-party goods, if you operate a first-party e-commerce site, but many different sellers across many different categories. So defining your catalog hierarchy and the attributes that you're going to have for each product, and the value lists of potential values, as each seller may have a different term or phrase or value or data type for their catalog, and there's a lot of effort involved in harmonizing that. The integrations with the taxation and payment is complex. Some of those seller integrations for some of your more advanced sellers, you may have automated integration for inventory updates and order submission, order updates. On the next, as we get into the full deployment, in the green box, we see some of the business operations once you're in the mode of running the marketplace. So ongoing seller recruiting and onboarding and supporting them, providing customer support and managing that messaging between customers and sellers, continued product curation and pricing curation, content QA, as you have many different people entering content into your platform, in continuous enhancement planning, as you need to continue on that journey of marketplace enhancement. And the blue box below, if we click more, we'll see some of the platform enhancements, which typically involve some more advanced integrations, more advanced seller integrations, improving some of the performance as you scale up from dozens to hundreds to thousands to perhaps tens of thousands of sellers on your site. Getting those dashboards, some advanced promos and coupons where you enable the third-party sellers to offer that. Perhaps internationalization, selling overseas, when you have to deal with multi-currency, multi-language, duties, and shipping restrictions. Perhaps omni-channel if you're bringing it into your physical store. And then, of course, last is the ongoing operations, just support and traditional, much like you would support an ongoing e-commerce platform. So that's the MES, the marketplace enablement steps. And our next slide, we'll just quickly touch on the marketplace architecture. This, we could spend a half hour just talking about this. But the one point I do want to make about this is on the top half of this, you'll see, let me start with the left side. The left side, you'll see really the marketplace operator. So in the top left corner, you have an admin console for your e-commerce platform. So depending on your platform, be it Magento or Salesforce or Shopify or Hybris, there's an admin console for managing your customer-facing system. And that's what's represented on the top portion of this. So the customer-facing or buyer-facing side is your e-commerce platform. And generally, it can be one of the commercial platforms. It can be a custom build. It can be, commerce tools, more advanced technology solution. So that's the customer-facing top side. Oftentimes, that already exists in an enterprise. Sometimes on a net new project, we have to select and implement a commerce engine as well. On the bottom left, you'll see a marketplace management console. So this is provided by the marketplace platform, or it may be some extensions to what's being built or custom built, some custom code. So the bottom part is where you have a variety of different marketplace platforms. From at the top enterprise scale, you have Miracle, which is really the kind of creme de la creme of enterprise scale marketplaces. And then you have some lower cost, less capable marketplaces as well for smaller business that want to start out a little bit smaller. And in fact, there are also some platforms that combine the commerce and the marketplace together, like Vtex. But selecting the platform, there are pros and cons to which platform you want to select. We have a report called the Marketplace Sweet Spot, which can help understand the different options for technology and which one is the best fit for different enterprises. All right, so I think our next slide, which is the last slide in the how, I'm going to talk about the metrics, chapter 21. So if you think of a marketplace as an engine, it's two parties. You have the sellers on the left and you have buyers on the right. So in this engine, you have levers that you can pull. Click once more. These levers are going to affect the dashboard. So at the top, we see different KPIs like gross merchandise value, monthly active users, conversion rate, average order values, number of sellers, churn rate, bounce rate, customer acquisition costs, abandonment rate, customer satisfaction, all the different metrics you want to have on your dashboard. On the left, we see some of the seller-facing levers. So if you change your commission rate from 15% to 30%, you're going to lose a lot of sellers. They're not going to want to only get 70% of their asking price. If you lower it down to 10%, you're going to get more, but your margins are going to be less. You can charge them more or less for ads. You can do stricter or looser curation of filtering of products and categories coming into your marketplace. You can invest more into seller recruiting. So those are some of the levers on the seller-facing side. And on the customer-facing side on the right, we see different levers which you can adjust. How much do you spend on search engine marketing? If you're a B2B, how many sales staff do you also have collaborating with the platform? How much you're investing in email and social marketing, or changing your user experience to optimize the customer experience? Are you offering different types of payment options like pay over time or credit terms that might help drive more customer acquisition? So all these different metrics you can adjust. Some of these we make some swag recommendations, but it's really A/B testing or multivariate testing in the live site that and looking at that dashboard, which tells you what the best fine tuning of your site typically is. So those are some of the how sections in the book. Why don't we hand it over to Rachel to talk about how Indigo launched their marketplace.
Awesome, thanks. So here, I'm just going to quickly talk about our motivation and then kind of walk through that timeline pretty quickly. So Indigo is known by its customers as a one-stop destination for gifts. And we're obviously known for being the best bookseller in the country, having the largest assortment and the best recommendations through our Heather's Picks and our staff picks. I know personally, I miss walking into a store and just asking a team member to hand me something they love and being surprised with their selection. So the motivation behind Thoughtful started as a way to remove the most common friction points in the gifting journey. I touched on that earlier, from the discovery, selection, and ending with the delivery. Delivery is huge in gifting, and it's something that, you know, when Tom was talking about the shipping grid setups and what's available, it makes things complicated. It really does. And so to be able to, so we as a company decided to continue and develop our own proprietary, like we have our own gift and lifestyle section, but through that extensive customer research, we essentially knew that there was an overwhelming desire to give the gift of time and shared experiences as opposed to just gifting stuff. Even though the stuff is also very important, everyone is different. So building that assortment that included experiences, services, the gift of time, subscriptions, that was so important to us and our customer. So just walking through this timeline pretty quickly, we started that discovery process talking to thousands of customers back in early of 2018 and developed the initial thought, like the initial concept and wireframe of Thoughtful in June of that year. It looks so different now than what we originally, had built, which is great because we've pivoted with constant customer feedback, listening, and making those changes. So then we built the prototype and we were able to roadshow it within our company between October 2018 and April 2019, sorry. And we were able to start kicking off our tech build out. We launched internally and then eventually launched to the GTA, which was our MVP in November of 2019, with a couple weeks later hitting our first $100,000 in sales. So by 2020, 2020 has changed everyone in the way that they operate. But for us, the year started out before COVID as really getting in touch with the customer journey and trying to dig into the customer detractors. What was stopping people from shopping on Thoughtful? What hurdles did they face, is trying to acknowledge that we were a marketplace and Indigo wasn't. So that kind of education was important. And after COVID kind of hit and we all went into lockdown, we introduced a national assortment, and then eventually later last year pivoted to 100% digital assortment, and quickly after moving into kids and baby, which we had long wanted to include in our assortment. So that's something, those are some big milestones from Thoughtful. And I'm just going to quickly touch on the customer response. It's been absolutely wonderful, with common sentiments being the discovery of amazing gifts was so easy, joyful, stress-free, being able to give gifts up to the last second. And like I said, when COVID started locking communities down in March, we started seeing so many in-person gifting occasions needing to move virtually. Shipping carriers were overwhelmed with capacity, and the increased demand on those networks and imposed social distancing guidelines to protect the safety of those workers, it automatically lended itself to lengthy delays in shipping carrier networks. And as a result, we saw an increased demand for gifts that shipped instantly and virtual experiences, which we had few of at the beginning of COVID. And we were able to work with our merchants to create virtual experiences to complement their in-person experiences, to engage people at home and nationally. So this allowed us to accelerate our national expansion. And as a result, that led us into the marketplace model to double down on digital delivery as our sole method of fulfillment and right-size our tech stack, which helped us streamline our customer communications about who we are and what we offer.
Ooh, Tom, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. Even Jeff Bezos did it at the Senate hearing, so he can do it. We can all do it. So more information about the book. It's launching today on Amazon. It's not indexed in there, so we'll send you a URL to find it on Amazon. We have a lot of other content. I mentioned the Marketplace Sweet Spot, which compares the different vendors for marketplace technology. From if you have a 5-figure budget or a 6-figure budget or a 7-figure budget for your marketplace project, there are different platforms that are right in the sweet spot for there. We have some solutions for different verticals like grocery or B2B, a lot of updates on our blog about changing laws about this. a bunch of infographics like our maturity model. If we click forward, we can see some of the other product informational products available for you. So again, just send an email to info@mcfadden.com, and we're happy to send a lot of it, probably more information than you want or could need about marketplaces to you. And let's conclude on the next slide as we open up for a Q&A.
Awesome. So we've gotten some pretty interesting questions from the audience already. So I'm going to ask a few, and Tom and Rachel, feel free to jump in on any of them. The first one is, other than Amazon, what 3 marketplaces in B2B do you think are doing the best job?
I would I would have to be biased and recommend some of our clients like Anheuser-Busch, AB InBev, ABB, and Kimberly Clark, some of the projects we've launched. But I'd say other than those, some of the ones we had in that B2B versus B2C versus C2C quadrant are doing exceptionally well. And a lot of times it can be a very niche solution that a B2B company provides. So and some of the unique requirements of B2B can be CPQ, configure price quote, where you have made parameters like a computer, where we actually, one of the first marketplaces we built about 15 years ago was a government procurement, B2B procurement marketplace, where over $1 billion of Army materials were sourced in this marketplace. And it had examples of punch out to Dell or HP for computer configuration, and then you punch back into the marketplace to do the checkout. And some of the other requirements in B2B can include serving different markets. So the example of AB InBev, the ZTech area that we launched, Mi Mercado marketplace in Latin America, which serves a lot of small tiendas, small stores, restaurants, where it's a highly fragmented marketplace for food and other grocery related product delivery in some markets where there's high inefficiency. So I'd say one of the biggest opportunities there is the high inefficiency areas. Much like Bezo said, your margin is my opportunity. There are certainly a lot of industries where there's a lot of inefficiency, and a lot of that still exists in B2B, which is more so than B2C, been a bit of a laggard in technology adoption for user experience and online transactions, except for EDI.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Can I answer that on B2C, just because it's something I'm more familiar with, but also passionate about?
Of course.
I'd have to say my 3 top B2C marketplaces are Instacart, Poshmark, and Cratejoy. So Instacart, obviously, I mean, I started my career in grocery, and having the commonalities in the SKU set, especially with like variable weighted items like produce, meat, bakery, etc., and the commonalities in consumer packaged goods, having that similar assortment allows the customer to really lean in on loyalty, that inventory and availability, and the brand trust. So I really like that you're able to kind of have that marketplace with everything that you might need, and like kind of leveraging that trust that you have in your grocery store. Because honestly, you talk to someone about where they love to shop, it can get heated sometimes. And then Poshmark, I really love that it's consumer to consumer. It's leaning into the upcycle community, which is just growing exponentially year over year, and has seen a drastic increase over COVID in cost savings, but also trying to divert things from landfills. So that's really amazing about Poshmark, like creating those connections. And then Cratejoy, I could talk about subscriptions forever, and how there's recurring, like replenishment subscriptions, which a lot of grocery and household item retailers have. There's the discovery, which is all about Cratejoy and just finding what people love. And I think it's a really great marketplace that connects small businesses offering subscriptions to consumers looking for a highly curated experience.
And I think Cratejoy is a good example of finding an inefficiency and making it efficient for the consumer.
It is.
Like how
100%.
Yeah, totally.
I like going to their website. It's like, do you want a donut subscription today? And I said, yes, I want a donut subscription.
So this, I think, is a really good follow-up and probably something a lot of our listeners have in mind. So how can a traditional retailer compete with huge marketplaces if they don't have the quantity of sellers or visitors? Bringing sellers takes a while, and bringing up site visitors can be really expensive.
So my suggestion would be not to try to do broad line general merchandise as a horizontal retailer. At Walmart scale, they can compete, at Target and so forth. The best suggestion is to have a niche area like Indigo Thoughtful's experience, personal experience marketplace. So having something that's unique and different. Etsy is an example of something that a marketplace that has grown dramatically with a focus on arts and crafts and homemade goods and so forth. That doesn't mean that the opposite, like a Poshmark, which focuses on the high-end luxury brands, can't be successful. They're both competing well and doing well compared to Amazon. One's on the very high end in that niche, one's on the more the arts and crafty side of things, and both are doing exceptionally well, especially Etsy. Another element that might be that can be considered is combining not just a two-party marketplace, but a three-party marketplace. We mentioned Instacart, the four-party marketplace. DoorDash is a three-party marketplace. Really combining services plus products is a pretty unique differentiator that can really drive a lot of great customer experiences not available elsewhere.
I completely echo that sentiment oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I completely echo that sentiment is find your niche, create that brand trust, and go from there. So thoughtful, we're gifting experiences that high curation to make sure that you're gifting or self-gifting the best you possibly can, and stress-free. Whereas you have someone like Rebel Store, a marketplace for used baby goods, and that's consumer to consumer, again, very similar to Poshmark. And it's creating that brand trust. Is like, here's where you get your baby stuff, or here's where you get your luxury goods, and just leaning into that. And once you've kind of owned that area, then expanding into verticals that make sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what's the typical timeline to get a return on your investment when you start your marketplace?
So that's part of the financial model, and Rachel can follow up with her real world experience, but it's usually a couple of years, but generally the return can be pretty substantial because of some of those benefits of the underlying platform economy. Once you've got the momentum going, the network effect happening, your incremental costs to sell one more additional item, what is it? Almost nothing. The marginal incremental cost of adding one more product or one more seller is almost nothing because it's automated. They can add sellers to the platform. They do all the work. They add the products. Customers buy it. So once you've got the momentum, it truly is a flywheel that's self-fulfilling. Rachel, your real world experience.
So launching Thoughtful was fast and furious, and not only were we creating a marketplace that required building that merchant community, that was the heaviest investment because we had no history. It was hard, and our team had to sell our vision and bring it to life when we didn't have a live website. So the salespersonship that our team and our curation team had to pull together, that was hard. And then creating the processes for onboarding, finding that what worked for us, that took a long time too. So obviously the upfront investment is heavier, not just with tech, and like the build, but with labor and time, and just literally you'll start something, you'll do it, and then it won't make sense, you'll scrap and start over again. So your labor is high, and so it obviously takes a couple years. We are not even 24 months since launch. We're like 18 months. We're still like, you know, when you call your baby by months. So we're still in the month stage. We haven't moved to years yet. And so we haven't seen it yet, but we will. But it's true, making those incremental additions, adding more merchants, adding more products, it's so much easier now and so much cheaper on a per SKU and a per merchant basis now than it was at launch.
One other factor is whether you're building on top of an existing brand with an existing first-party commerce customer base, or you're starting an entirely new business model and new brand, and you have to drive all your traffic from scratch, which will be a harder uphill climb.
Yeah,
Sure.
and that's something that we faced as well, because we had a tech build and we launched a marketplace that didn't integrate with an existing platform and e-commerce functionality. So, I mean, we were able to skip some. We, as Thoughtful, were able to skip some of the steps that were in the marketplace maturity model by not owning inventory or having to integrate with dropship or having to create pick logic in the back end for a product if it could be fulfilled by multiple channels. But you know, we had that trade-off, is we weren't getting that direct traffic from Indigo. And as soon as we started to, you know, synergize with Indigo more and create it more as the brand, we definitely saw more of that brand trust come over to our brand. So traffic is huge when you're starting net new, but also we fortunately missed out on some of those integration pieces that are heavy and expensive.
Actually, if I can interject one comment before people may have to drop, is we will be sending out an email tomorrow with information about getting a free copy of the book. So before people drop, just do expect that email tomorrow. The book launched today, and the availability to send out the free download code will be available tomorrow.
Awesome. And I'm just going to squeeze in one more question before we sign off, because I think this is a good follow-up to what you were just talking about. How do you build customer loyalty? Is delivering good value and experience the only way, or do you suggest any loyalty programs, any tips there?
Actually, one of the projects, that marketplace that we built, was actually a loyalty program. If you're familiar with the American Express membership rewards program in the US, we built the equivalent in Brazil for a combination of the two biggest banks down there, with about 1 million SKUs from third-party sellers, plus also the ability to redeem points for flights, car rentals, hotel stays, etc. So loyalty in itself is a business model for a marketplace as well. Very successful, highly scalable, gamification built in based on the whole concept. So loyalty programs in itself is an entirely new business model, not new business model, but successful business model for a lot of marketplaces.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I think this is a really great question, because Indigo has one of the strongest loyalty platforms and rewards program in the country. And so obviously at launching on a separate platform, it wasn't part of our MVP scope. It was just too heavy, and we hope to have it in the future, because integrating that just strengthens that trust. So right now we're hyper focused on that experience, and we have a unique experience flywheel, whereas most marketplaces have merchant and customer, and we actually have a full 360, which is merchant to customer, customer to recipient, recipient back into the merchant at point of redemption. So making sure that experience is strong and seamless is the most important thing that we have for our brand trust and loyalty right now.
Awesome. All right, we're just about at time, so thank you so much, Tom and Rachel, and thanks everyone for joining us. You'll have a recording of today's presentation available to you that you can check out, and other webinars that we have upcoming on our website, and check out that link to the book, which will have all of this information and much more. So thank you so much, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.